Hello, my name is Mary Hayes, and the purpose of my project was to find the impact of grading math homework on the final grade. I chose this topic because there was a new grading policy introduced at one of our middle schools. They moved more towards a standards-based grading system where quizzes and tests would count towards the final grade and homework would just be considered a behavior or participation. So it would not count toward the final grade at all. And a lot of the math teachers were concerned and wondered what would happen to the grades if homework didn't count and wondered what would happen to student motivation. So I developed my research questions of, does grading math homework impact the final grade? Does not grading math homework affect student motivation? And does providing alternatives to grading homework impact quiz or test scores? The setting, well, I teach at Jefferson Middle School in Midland, Michigan. So the research took place in my 4 7th grade pre-algebra classes. I have a total of 113 pre-algebra students. And what I did was I collected data on homework and test averages in the second and third marking periods. In the second marking period, homework was just based on completion points. I would give the assignment, they would work on it in class a little bit, whatever they didn't finish would be homework. The next day I'd check it, see if they did it, and give them points based on effort and completion. In marking period 3, in chapter 7, that was the first chapter that we had in marking period 3, I kind of phased out the completion points. And then in chapters 8 and 9, we did homework quizzes instead of the completion points. And for the homework quizzes, I gave them a homework quiz every other section. So it kind of gave them a little leeway as well on did they necessarily have to finish their homework every night. So I gave them the homework quiz every other night. And the questions came directly from the homework, and they aligned really well with the chapter quizzes and tests that we were going to take. So I used them a little bit as a formative assessment tool as well. In the second marking period, homework counted for 18%, and the third marking period about 11%. In chapters 8 and 9, the homework was a homework quiz, so I moved it into the quiz category. And then the test average was only 39% in the second marking period. It went up to 62% in the third marking period, which was where I really wanted it. So I was happy about that. At the beginning of the survey, at the beginning of the research, I gave all of my students a survey on homework and how they felt about homework. All of my students completed the homework survey. About 60% said that they had math 3 or more nights a week, and with 2/3 of them sometimes needing math help at home. Um, After they complete their assignment, the next day we go over the assignment and correct the assignment in class and go over any questions that they have. So 91% said they do follow along and correct assignments. 77% said they ask questions, while 77% also feel that the method helps them understand the topic. So this kind of reaffirmed for me too that what I was doing in class after they had completed the homework was helping them, or at least they felt like it was helping them. So that made me feel good. I like that. Um, but 93% believe the purpose of math homework is to provide practice to better understand the topic. So it did show me that most of them believe that there's a point to math homework. There were the 7% who really didn't think there was any point, but the majority of them felt that there was a point to doing math homework. And then it was split about 50-50 when asked if homework should be graded. And it was like 53-47. It was very split. And the basis was they thought it was practice. And the ones for grading it said it's practice, we do it, so we should get just completion points and not graded for right or wrong. And then the other group said, no, it's just practice, we shouldn't get any points for it. So they were really split on that one. When asked if they would complete the homework with no grade attached, most of them said that they would. Well, 10% said not as often. But after we did the survey, I brought up the results in the classroom and we discussed it. And in every single classroom, some students brought up the topic of homework quizzes. They said, well, why don't we do homework quizzes? That seems like that would just solve the homework issue of grading based on completion. Let's just switch to homework quizzes. And I thought that's a wonderful idea because that's what we're going to do. So I was really glad that they came up with that idea, or at least they thought that they did. And that really opened up the conversation in the classroom about math homework, and it helped us, solidify our classroom culture of doing homework and knowing that it does serve a purpose. So my results of switching to homework quizzes, really, I have right here marking period 2 and marking period 3, just their homework average, test average, final grade, and then the homework quiz average, test average, and final grade. And the second marking period, the homework average is quite high. Everyone did their homework. Not everyone, but most people did. And if they didn't, they did extra credit. But test averages and then the final grade averages from a two-tailed bivariate correlation that was ran, it showed that there was a strong correlation between test scores and the final grade in the second marking period. So between the test scores and the final grade, there was a strong correlation. Um, in the third marking period, I feel that the test average and final grade definitely match up a little bit more. So I can definitely tell that, the tests were worth more of the grade. And then in the third marking period, I also broke it down by chapter because I did each chapter differently. So in chapter 7, here the test average was 89%. Chapter 8, it went up to 91, and then chapter 9, it was up to 93. And the only thing that we changed was we switched to the homework quizzes. So by seeing that 2% increase for each chapter, that helped me decide that I really want to continue with the homework quizzes because I think it helps them, and I did use it as more of a formative assessment tool. But from the correlation that was run. In Chapter 7, there was a strong correlation between the homework average and test average, and also between the test average, up here, homework average and test average, and also between the test average and the final grade. So, they did the homework, it increased their test scores, and then it increased their final grade. So I think that that shows that there was definitely an impact of grading the homework on the final grade. In Chapter 7. Chapter 8, there was a strong correlation between the test average and the final grade. So those were the facts, and those were the results. So my conclusions on this. So my research question, does grading homework impact the final grade? I believe it does. Grading homework does impact the final grade. You just have to find an effective method that works for you in your classroom with your students. Does grading homework affect student motivation? It did a little bit in my class. I think the students that were not very motivated at the beginning of the year kind of showed that a little bit more after we had discussed that, oh, I might not possibly check homework. So then they thought, oh, I don't have to use my class time. So we did have to have some conversations in the classroom of, well, we still have class time. You still need to use it. So we just had a few conversations and those kids got right back on track. So I think having open communication with your students about the purpose of math homework, and what you and they should both expect from it is very important in your classroom. And then for my third question, does providing alternatives to grading homework impact quiz or test scores? I believe that my homework quizzes did have an impact on the test scores, increasing that 2% each time in the third marking period. So I do like that method. I'm going to continue with that method in my classroom, and hopefully I'll keep seeing, a trend. But I think educators just need to be aware of different homework options and find out what works best in their classroom with their students. Recommendations, I do think definitely more research needs to be done to find the most effective method of grading daily math assignments. And then also more research with lower level students, because I don't know if I would get the same results with my general math class as I did with my pre-algebra math class. So I think more research definitely needs to be done in this area. But overall, I think grading homework does have an impact on the final grade.